take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Take Flight Podcast. This is episode number 215, and this is part of our solo takeaway episodes. Our solo takeaway episodes are where one of the hosts of Take Flight Podcast walks you through a topic that they're passionate about and they feel like the listeners can gain value from. This week's episode will be hosted by myself, OLU OKUNOLA. Now, in this week's episode, I want to wrap up the year by looking at my 2023 financial goals, see whether I achieved them, my lessons learned, and then look forward at my 2024 goals. Now, the point of this video is not to flex, so I'm not going to include total numbers. Instead, I'm going to use percentages. A reminder for the listeners, comparison is the thief of joy. Now, remember, there's someone out there that's always doing better than you, and there's someone out there that would kill to be in your position. The point of videos like this is really to take the lessons learned and implement them in your life, right? The real focus should be, how do you improve year over year? So the point of me doing this video is not to flex, is not for someone to feel some kind of way. It's really to look at what I've learned from 2023 and what I can implement into 2024. But before I get started, I just want to say, this podcast is for information purposes only. Matters discussed are not intended to provide or should not be relied on as investment, accounting, legal, tax advice, or financial recommendation. The views and opinions presented are those of the four presenters or any guests that we have on the show, and these might change. We advise that you seek and obtain independent professional advice in relation to your personal circumstances. So let's get started. In December 2022, my net worth was made up of 65% property. So I've included my property value minus any debt associated to those properties. 20% of money in my pension, mainly in stocks. 10% into stocks. So you think about that as stocks and shares, ISAs. And then 5% in cash. So emergency fund or money that I want to keep allocated to invest in the future. So looking at this pie chart of my net worth, you can see that a large percentage of my net worth is tied into properties, buy-to-let properties, and the property in which I live in. Now, I wanted to reduce this amount because I find properties are less liquid. Yes, you can take out equity from your property, take out a loan associated to that. But as we were entering, or we are in a higher interest rate environment, the cost of borrowing has just increased to a point where does it really make sense? Not as much as it used to. So that's why my main focus as I was entering in 2023 was really, how do I reduce that pie chart associated to property, move more towards investing into my pension and also into stocks, where as that continues to grow, I will start to benefit from that compounding. And then also there's no debt associated to it. So I'm not borrowing money associated to that element of my net worth. So as I went into 2023, my goal was to reduce the amount of my net worth allocated to property, increase the net worth in pension and stocks, and then lastly to grow my net worth by 15%. So now let's go through each of the different components and see if I achieved my goal. So let's start off with property. The goal going into 2023 was to grow my property value by 5%. Also, as I had multiple properties going up for renewal and remortgaging, the plan was to get all my loan to value at 60%. This will allow me to apply for the lowest interest rates available in the market, especially as we were entering into a high inflationary and interest rate environment. I was able to achieve the goal of getting my mortgages down to a 60% loan to value. Unfortunately, the property value didn't grow as much as I expected, the 5%. In fact, value of my portfolio only grew by 1%. Considering the environment that we were in, or we have been in 2023, a growth of 1% is not something to be upset about. Yes, I didn't achieve the 5% growth that I wanted, but considering the high interest rates, the value of my properties were able to hold up against the current environment. Now, the lessons I learned here was that you can't control the value of your properties. It fluctuates based on so many market variables. But what you can focus on is what is your reliance to debt, and that's an area that I wanted to reduce. And by reducing that, it means I pay lower interest rates, right? I'm not so impacted by the increase in interest rates. And then secondly, a focus on cash flow. That is something that you can control. So looking at my properties and seeing, are there other strategies in which I can generate more cash flow? Maybe moving from single family occupancies to HMOs can generate a higher return or cash flow on these properties. The second part is my pension pot. Now, the goal that I had at the beginning of the year was to grow this by 25%. This was my original portfolio grown by 10% and me maximizing my employee matching scheme. So matching schemes are where your employer will match what you put into your pension. So it could be if you put 5%, let's say that's £1,000, your employer will also match that and put an additional £1,000 into your pension. That's 100% return on your money. So as I was going into 2023, the goal was to maximize whatever free money my employer was given. This was something I was able to achieve. I did. I maximized the amount that my employer was willing to match, but also because 2022 was a negative return year in terms of the S&P 500, I think it went down 20%. Most years when you have a negative return on the stock market, the next year is typically positive. It's not always the case, but in most cases it is. So I knew I wanted to heavily invest there. So my goal was to invest and grow 25% my pension pot. I was actually able to grow it by 40% due to the fact that the stock market went up significantly in 2023. The next part of my net worth is stocks. The goal for 2023 was to grow this by 40%. Again, this was expecting my stock or portfolio to grow by 10% and then maximizing the amount of free company shares that I can invest in, and then also maximizing stocks and shares ISA. In the UK, you have a maximum allowance of 20k. The goal was to see, okay, can I maximize my stocks and shares ISA to that 20k? And the real reason I set this goal was, as I mentioned before, 2022 was a negative year. I was anticipating that the S&P 500 will grow in 2023, which currently year to date, I think we're up around 23%. So the goal at the beginning of the year was to grow my stocks and shares by 40%. I was actually able to grow this by 65%. And that was just mainly due to the returns in the market. But like I said, when you start the beginning of the year, and I think these are the themes that you're seeing, by automating and sticking with a plan that you set out at the beginning of the year, you can truly benefit from it. I could have said, okay, entering 2023, the stock market is down. Am I truly a believer in long-term investments? I truly believe in the stock market recovering, keeping money. I could have kept money on the side and I would have missed out on the growth in the market, in my pension and my stocks and shares ISA. Again, understanding your philosophy, understanding your long-term horizon, and then just sticking with your plan. Lastly, cash. Plan was just to hold it flat at the 5% for my emergency funds, just in case I have any medical, there's a funeral that I need to contribute towards. Now, in terms of my cash, I was able to grow that by 11%, but this was just due to, as I was getting to the end of the year, holding more cash just because I felt like most of the stocks on the market were highly inflated. And I just wanted to save and keep cash for new opportunities as I enter into 2024. So the goal for 2023 was to grow my net worth by 15%. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to achieve that. I missed it by 2%. I was only able to grow my net worth by 13%. But this is nothing to be upset about or unhappy about. I'm actually ecstatic. The fact that I was able to grow my total net worth by 13%. Now, if I look at how my net worth is actually constructed as we get to the end of 2023, it's 55% in property, 25% into my pension, 15% in stocks, and 5% in cash. So as we move forward and look at 2024, what's my goal? My goal, again, is to try and grow my net worth by 15%. It's tough goal, because especially as you start to deal with bigger and bigger numbers, by growing by 15%, it's harder and harder to achieve, but also you do benefit from compounding, which was part of the reason why I wanted to move more of my allocation of my net worth to stocks and my pension fund as well. So first goal as I enter into 2024 is to grow my net worth by 15%. But another element of my goal, financial goal, is really how do I create new cash flowing businesses? So I want to focus on two businesses that I want to start creating in 2024. I'll be sure to do a takeaway episode, give you more insight into those businesses. But the real aim there is how do I buy freedom? So the last few years I've been really focusing on my net worth, but in most cases it's not as liquid. You want that to just really stay and compound and grow. But what really gives you your freedom is your cash flow. So I want to look at what other ways can I generate cash flow, which would then allow me to buy my freedom. Right, I can make a decision to say, hey, I want to take 6 months out to travel the world, and I will have those businesses generating incomes for me. So that's really my goals for 2024. Now, the way I'm going to achieve these goals are really the 4 tips I'm about to really give you to go away with, right? I think as I look back at my 2023 and me being able to grow my net worth by 13%, I was really able to achieve this by these 4 different steps. First one is living below your means, right? You're never going to be able to generate wealth or grow wealth unless you live below your means. That's going to allow you to invest, to save money. So my big focus is ensuring that lifestyle inflation doesn't creep into my life, right? So making sure that I focus on how much I'm spending, how much I make, ensuring that I'm able to allocate a large amount of that to investing into my future, into some of the business ideas I have. Second tip is really maxing out your pension and then also tax advantage accounts such as your stocks and shares ISAs in the UK. Reason is most employers have some sort of a matching scheme. So you get free money. If you invest a certain percentage of your salary, they will match that. So it's 100% return on that money. Also, after you've sort of maxed that out, the next place to really invest your money, which I've been doing and trying to max out, is my stocks and shares ISAs. Reason is because whatever money you make within that stocks and shares ISA is protected, right? So when you do decide to sell them, you don't have to pay any capital gain tax. The next thing is automate. Now, I've been able to grow my net worth by being consistent. A lot of these things I don't think about. My employer, every month I get paid, money comes out of my salary, goes straight to my pension fund. It's automatically invested into certain ETFs and indexes. I don't have to think about it. Same with my stocks and shares ISA. As soon as my salary comes in, a certain percentage is allocated to my stocks and shares ISA. I don't have to think about it. The most important thing and when it comes to generating wealth is automating in such a way that you're consistent. Like I never really miss this money because I've never had it. I've never seen this money, right? When my paycheck comes, before I have an opportunity to spend it, I allocate it to so many different places where I want to invest and I want to grow. So automating allows you to be consistent, allows you to follow the plan that you set at the beginning of the year, and allows you to truly grow your wealth. And the last thing is invest wisely. I think when it comes to investing, a lot of people like to follow the latest trend, hype stock. And in most cases, you fail. The reason is most people don't have the time to learn about all these different investment opportunities. That's why I keep it really, really simple. I invest in a diverse portfolio of stocks, mainly in the S&P 500, because in that way, I don't need to think about, okay, how much revenue did this business have? Did they change their management team? All these different things that even these experts, these financial advisors struggle to know themselves or have the time to learn. So especially when you've got a full-time job, you don't have the time or capacity to learn all these things. So I just keep it really simple and I follow what has worked for multiple millionaires. And that is investing in the S&P 500. I set myself what my risk tolerance is. By doing that, because I'm in a diverse portfolio, it's lower risk than if I was picking individual stocks. Also, I know that I'm going to be investing for the next 10, 15, 20 years. So if there's a correction like what we saw in 2022, where there was a drop of around 20%, it doesn't impact me because I know my horizon is 5, 10, 20 years down the line. Especially when it comes to investing, sometimes can be confusing, but Take Flight Podcast have released numerous episodes which you can listen to learn about investing. So I really hope this episode was insightful. Like I said before, the aim of this video wasn't to flex. It was more to check how I did in terms of my 2023 goals, what worked, what didn't work, and then really focus on what I'm going to do for 2024. And I hope the tips I've given you in this video are helpful. You can implement them to your lives. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on Take Flight Podcast on Instagram, or you can reach out to me directly, OLU_OKUNOLA at Instagram. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to this YouTube channel, and take care and God bless.
Take off, take flight with you. Yeah, for we never fly, but we're